All right, so today is October 7th, 2024. My name is Evan Strong. I am the founder of In the Image Clothing Company. In the Image Clothing Company. Sorry, I was laughing because the intro was silly, but we are a clothing company that is so much more than just a clothing company. We discuss universal truths about the body as it is, because we were designed in the image universally of our living God, who is Jesus Christ. So the body only works how it works, and it only does what it does, okay? We recognize our slight differences or major ones if and when needed, and we address them if and when needed, right? Surgeries, deformities, whatever it is within your own personal body, amputations, anything that could come up that sets you apart. And that's fine. We recognize those if and when, but otherwise we are all universally designed skeletal system-wise. We talk about the skeletal system here, okay? It's not about the fat content, muscle mass, height, or width, or anything. It's about the skeletal system and a natural positioning of the body, okay? So we here at In the Image Clothing Company have a few prerequisites that I had before I even founded the company, just to allow the body to work, okay? Just to allow it to have a chance. And that is to lace your shoes with the technique that is In the Image Clothing Company's technique. You can find where you find us. Just look us up on the internet and you will find us. Paired with just lacing or tying your shoes evenly over toward the inside, right? That lacing technique just allows the shoe to fit like a glove would on the hand, but for the foot, right? Just to allow it to be a foot within the design's capability of the specific shoe you're wearing. Yes, okay, that's huge. Just to allow the arches to naturally be there and grip and activate, right? Good toenails on the toes to allow for a natural healthy arch within the foot that would be there, right? And then pairing the lacing with just removing the tags from within your shoes. They're normally in the tongues, and then up through the entirety of all the clothing you wear. And I've gone into great depth, right? I've made videos on those tags and what they do to the universal human design, how they affect the way our body moves, and they're placed in positions that I've gone into. You can go find within In the Image Clothing Company content, okay? Wherever you can find us on the internet nowadays, 2024, right? Just meaning you can find us. So this is my new series called The Truth Behind. Sorry, I just forgot my, what did I forget? I guess the fact that we don't stretch here. In other words, I make the claims we shouldn't have to, because I don't now. I did in the past and it never worked, but now just allowing my clothing to sit on my body, allowing my body to do its thing. Well, we don't have to stretch within our own situations, right? Because the body's designed to work. And we don't have to exercise or work out to get up to a certain capability level, because the body's designed to work within our own things, right? If you got your own things, you've got your own things. All right, so that intro was a little bit scattered, but that's fine. It's great. Meaning everything was in there. It was just kind of like a different layout than I normally say it. But yes, so what I'm going to talk about in this episode of The Truth Behind is bench presses. I'm really scattered in this video, but I'm gonna talk about it, because here's the thing. A bench press, the body likes to pull. The body, the human body, the universal human design would much rather like to pull than push, okay? Because when you're standing neutral, right, on a vertical globe, you need to stay internal, just because it's a very natural position, right? Internal rotation versus externally rotated body, right? Posterior tuck of the pelvis, arches of the feet, naturally gripped, internal rotation traveling down the legs, core, because of that posterior tuck, the core can then activate, shoulders in a nice neutral internal position, and we stand, right? The body wants to pull. It wants to come toward itself. The body doesn't really like to push, because that just puts you into external rotation, and now you're just falling, right? The body likes to pull, because gripped arches, internal rotation of the feet is a pull, it's a tuck, the posterior chain of the body, right? The hamstrings, they pull. The glutes, they essentially pull. Because when you're tucking your pelvis, you're activating your glutes, and those glute medius will internally rotate you. The inner adductors will pull. The body likes to pull towards itself, toward your center line. It likes to pull, okay? The shoulders, they're designed to pull, but internal, right? We're designed to come toward ourself, really. Because if you push away, now you're gone. You want to pull in, okay? When you're doing a bench press, if you know what a bench press is, it is obvious, but a bench press is a push. Look at my pelvis. If I want to stay tucked here, natural and neutrally stacked, just because gravity's pulling me down, I need to stay stacked. Well, I want to be into myself in a sense. And when you push, it's very hard to stay tucked and activated while you push, because you need to almost like counterbalance. That's the thing with, yeah, we'll get into that in a different video, but yeah, because when you're pushing, your pelvis will then kind of almost have to go like anterior, right? And if your pelvis goes anterior, your knees will go in, your legs will go external, and your arches will collapse, right? But then if that happens down there, from there up, your back has to compensate to keep you kind of in line, but like out of line now, right? And so what'll happen is your lumbar spine will then excessively curve, but then again, you're still vertical, or if you're laying down bench pressing, same thing, your body still has to stay pretty well in line. And so then your thoracic spine, meaning mid-back, will curve the opposite way, and then your neck will curve the opposite way again. So you'll be kind of like this, rather than like this. Natural, neutral, the way the body works, but if you're pushing, you have to kind of like push against something almost, right? I mean, I don't even know if I'm going to I might not even lay down for any demonstration within this. I was planning on it, but I don't think I even need to, because yeah, internal rotation should just be natural from a neutral position of the shoulders, right? Yeah, I mean, I've done a lot of videos on just the body itself, to where you can go find them, where you find In The Image Clothing Company. But you know, going from here, again, from here, you can just pull, right? You picture doing any kind of pulling motion. My body isn't changing while I'm doing this. This looks like a dance move, but nothing within my body changes when I pull here, because I'm activating more. But when I'm pushing, things have to change, because again, the muscles that activate the body, I've said this many times. I did a video called There Is a Lot to Internal Rotation, but I've said this many times, where there's very, very little to no strength within the anterior part of the body. Little to no functional strength, really there isn't. In the quads, and in like the pecs and the pushing muscles, like there's just not, because you can't push without pushing against something. But when you pull, you're like, you have yourself to brace with on the other end, but you can't do that pushing. The body's designed to pull, not push. Yeah, it really is. That's a whole video that I'm gonna make a video about that. I will. Yes, because the body's designed to pull toward itself. Then everything just activates. Anytime you're pushing, you're like pushing your muscles away from where they're stemming, really. Because what stabilizes your shoulder isn't your pec. I mean, your pec plays into your shoulder, of course, just because it literally connects into your shoulder. But no, I mean, to stabilize your body, and it just really meaning just being in a natural position, it's all about what's going on in the rear. It's about this rotator cuff that goes into the scapula, and it's about just a natural, relaxed position that's just neutral. And pulling just kind of reinforces that, right? But pushing, everything's going away, and you only go so far till you have to compensate with your neck or with your pelvis and back, right? Your neck is your back. So what'll happen? I'm gonna turn this video into just pushing versus pulling. The body likes to pull, okay? Because we don't need to discuss just a bench press necessarily. We'll just talk about how, I mean, the beginning's fine, but no, this will be the video. It'll just be kind of longer, incorporating the bench press in the beginning, and then we just won't do a separate video on a bench press because it's a silly movement. But yeah, when you are doing a bench press though, right? I mean, when I say we won't talk about it, I just mean like, this is gonna be the video, pushing versus pulling, because doing a bench press, what you'll see is usually people are like laying down on a bench that's about a couple feet tall, right? Like this wide, right on their back, and then their feet are off to the sides, and they're like bench pressing. And what you'll see is they'll go like this. A lot of times you'll see the back like arch so excessively. But again, this is what I talk about within movements. If you're training something that's not how your body actually works, and the only way it works, we cannot tell our bodies what to do. That's something I say all the time. And then I say you can try all you want and then have fun with your stretching routines and your foam roller. But I say we shouldn't have to stretch, and it's true. Because the body only has its one functioning position. I made an entire video called "The Body Only Has One Position." And from there we do everything from, right? We hinge at the hips, or we reach or pivot, but the body doesn't move out of its activated neutral position. It really doesn't. In a properly functioning body, universal human design, we just get so out of touch from where that is, right? But when people are on a bench and they're bench pressing and their back is going so curved on the lumbar because the pelvis is going anterior, and now their shoulders are in external rotation, and they're like bench pressing like this, the knees are like doing weird things. You want to just be naturally active and neutral, right? Just because this is how you'd be in life. And so you can train this on a bench press machine, or on a bench with a barbell, right? Doing a bench press all you want, but then what, go through life like this, right? This is what I was talking about in I just did another video on the deadlift, the first episode of this series of the truth behind, right? Gym bros, quote unquote, and I'm not trying to offend anybody, but really, they walk around like this because they've been bench pressing like this. Same thing, right? So really what you're doing is just deeply ingraining a patterning that the body doesn't even work in. That's why you are feeling what you're feeling while you're doing it. It just, your body doesn't even do that. It really doesn't. Nobody's does. We're universally designed, skeletal system wise. The body doesn't do this. So yes, I mean, pushing motions are so strange, because if you were going to do a push up on the ground, then you'd be able to stay pretty tucked, right? But within a bench press, you can't, because your back is against something. And so it's kind of pushing your like naturally tucked, I don't want to use the word rounded because I know how that's going to sound, but no, just like centered and neutrally active position that people are just pretty out of touch with. This position, doing a push-up on the ground, you can stay like, well, you wouldn't be up here, but like you can stay pretty tucked within the pelvis and activate the core. But then once you get, see how my thoracic spine, I don't want to use the word rounded, right? Because that's not what it is, but almost, right? Because the scaps come out of the way in a good, healthy, internally rotated position where they're in a very, very strong, healthy position. Just a lot of times within gym communities, you just always hear, put your shoulders back and then do your movements. And no, not really, because you just want your shoulders to be loose. And there's a lot of mobility naturally within the scapulas into internal rotation that people are just so chronically lacking until fixed, right? That they think their shoulders need to be back. But look where I am right now. That reason I stopped is because look what my scapulars are doing. But that's very healthy because they're just in an open position. Like if you picture a fighter, right, like a martial artist, their scapulas, they're not going to stand with them so retracted. They're going to be open, right? But you have to be allowed to get posterior with the pelvis, and everything else I said, just the natural openness has to be able to be there to get the scaps here, right? And so it is kind of round, but hear that correct, because we don't want to be doing motions out of a rounded back. But from a foundational standpoint of a good neutral working body, the way it was designed until altered through the world and worldly things, you would be slightly what looks like round on the back. You really would, but it has to be seen and heard correct, because you don't want to hurt yourself coming from a poor foundation and then rounding your back. But if everything's working as it should as a whole, the pelvis tucks, opens, internal, and now you've just got so much mobility, right? So from here you can just pull, but from here you can't really push very well. And that's why I kind of fanboy over martial artists, right? Because a fighter, like a boxer, is kind of like this, very closed off. I don't care who that offends, it's true, right? And they're like punching like this, and like the entire body's like doing stuff. But a martial artist, they're open, and they're just like very mobile, because again, those scaps are open. And when you're trying to punch, you're essentially like pushing. But when you're doing this kind of motion, it's kind of like a pull, right? Do you see that? That's sweet. I love this video because that's a beautiful visual. Because I did a video called How the Pinky Finger Affects the Entire Body, and I talked about that, how a punch, you can stand here and look all tough, but then you can't reach because of the position of the hand, right? I've done a video on the natural working human hand. I've done a video on the natural wrist, right? I know the body well, I really do. But from a foundational working as a whole standpoint, right? Before altered from the world. I know I said that, but that's really what it is. So open is more of a pull, okay? If you're going to push, you almost have to like close off. So any kind of gym exercise where you're trying to build the front of your body, well, it's gonna cause you to kind of do this. And you look like what you think of a typical gym goer looking like, right? Like this. But if you're just gonna be a natural human, ready to just like do anything that your body within your own capability could do, you're actually almost pulled naturally, right? Internal rotation, like I say, there's very little to no strength in the front of the body, in those quads. I mean, when I'm doing all of this, whatever it is, you know, movements and like just like moving my body, my quads are not doing so much, really not doing much at all. It's all back here, okay? It really is. And then the upper body is just in its neutral position. But if you're trying to push, right, versus pull, your whole body can then open pulling, and it kind of closes down pushing, because pushing is usually more of an externally rotated position, and pulling would be internal, opening, tucking, active, rotated, right? That's cool. I love this video. I love this video. I was planning on making this video, but now it ended up being this video. Yeah, no, pushing versus pulling. The body doesn't want to push. It's because like what I was saying at the beginning, when you're pulling, you have your own anchor. My foot is anchoring against me, or like, you know what I mean? Like it's working with me to push against what I'm pulling. But when you push, I mean, yeah, you've got your feet behind you, but where else are you gonna go? Like what muscles are really going to push here? I mean, your scaps are at their farthest, and your calves are pretty well extended. There's no muscle, there's nowhere to go. There's no range of motion. You really, I mean, there's no farther I can get trying to push. But pulling, you've got your entire body working as a whole, because you're like within yourself, if that makes sense, not like away from yourself. You just can't even push to a certain degree. There's nowhere else to go. I made a video one time called "Stretching Isn't Necessary." I'm breathing hard, but that's true, and I stand by it, right? And I talked about that within this video. I usually mention that in my intros, but because there's nowhere else to go. Like, you can try to stretch your quads all you want, but as long as your pelvis is in a neutral position, once your heel hits your glute, you can't go anywhere else. And you wouldn't get stiff to where you aren't already there if there weren't things within your life that are just altering your body's ability to do that anyway, which really it's clothing, right? If you're just in a natural position within your own situation, but really you should, I mean, we do have our own individuality, yes, but you should just have your ranges of motion. I mean, you just get to somewhere and it stops, right? You just push, and then, well, what else is going to go? How else are you going to push? But if you're pulling, you can keep pulling. You know what I mean? Like, there's so much range of motion within a pull. I don't know if you can see my leg, but it's internally rotating so much. So are my arms. That's what I talk about, internal rotation. Yeah, the body's designed to pull, not push. Because, like, in the past, if you had a cart, right? And a lot of places in the world too, but just here in the United States of America, a lot of times we think about it as just like in the past, and we think about more natural things is really what it is, because we live in first world America, right? Which times and places. But if you were to be pulling a cart in the past, you'd be pulling a cart. You think about how the pioneers got to, like, the West. I live in Utah in the United States of America. The pioneers came across the plains of the United States, right, with hand carts, but they didn't push them across the plains, they pulled them. Because this position, like, you can really pull, but if you're trying to push a cart, well, if you slip, you're already at the end of your range of motion, and now you've slipped, and just, where do you go? But when you pull, I mean, your whole body is just internal and activated together. So yeah, the point with saying the cart is nowadays we'll be in a grocery store like this, external rotation, pushing a cart down the aisles, rather than internally rotated pulling. Because there's no adjustment from here to here. The body's just already in that position. You just kind of put the shoulders, or the hands, the shoulders don't really do much. You just kind of put the hands back and grab the cart. But when you push, you go from your natural position, similar to what I said in the truth behind the deadlift video. You go from here to here, and you can't stay open if your hands are in a position they wouldn't normally be in. See what I mean? So again, we're just out of touch, and I was also for so many years. I don't want it to sound accusatious, but I do want to show how silly it really is to try to get the body to do something it doesn't do. This is a beautiful video. I'm so grateful for this video. I was excited to make this, the push versus pull. And then it can just apply to anything, right? I mean, I demonstrated it enough to where you can see what I'm talking about. You get to a certain point with a push, and there's nowhere else to push. But you pull, and you can keep pulling. I mean, like, and it's not just that, but like I said, the muscles that are being recruited, it's external versus internal. Very open in a pull, very open in martial arts, very closed in boxing, right? Because if you do see a martial artist punch, like with a closed fist, it's down here. Because my shoulders, like here, can be so much more natural. I'm not a martial artist by any means, but you can be in a more natural position here than up here, with like binding will happen, trying to punch, right? Rather than like down here, because now you're already in an externally rotated position where your scap has room to actually move. right? You can see my scapula. And so if they're punching like low punches, again, I'm not a martial artist, I'm not trying to necessarily, but yeah, this is how it is though, right? Like lower stuff like this, your shoulders can stay neutral. But if you're gonna come up here, now try to, because the reason I'm saying this is because a punch is a push. It's the same thing, right? But you'll just have binding all over the place, pushing, rather than, like I was saying, it's almost a pull within like open martial arts stuff, right? It's like, it's essentially like you're pulling ropes rather than like pushing a cart. See what I mean? Okay, good. I just wanted to make sure to kind of bring that full circle. But yeah, that's, anyway, the body wants to pull. So that's how it's designed to work. That's really all it does, like actually does, right? Pushing, yeah, again, times and places, if you need to push something a little bit, but there's just, the muscles can't recruit because this will retract to pull. Even the pec will like aid in pulling in a way. I mean, the muscles can retract, and the only way the muscles can do something is if they're retract, meaning contract, like get smaller, right? Like this bicep, contract. Now the tricep can contract to push, but then you'd have to be starting where its range of motion actually is. So you'd have to start like this close to allow your tricep to even have range of motion to push. And when you're pushing, you're normally going to start like away from you a little bit, because you're not going to come up to something that you need to push, like put your chest against it so you can get range of motion in your tricep and then push. But then again, where do you go now, right? Because now something has to compensate, meaning the hips, and then that's everything else. There's only so far until there's binding, right? It's just not a functional motion to push. It just really isn't. I'm gonna sit on this as long as I need. This video can be as long as it needs to be because I really want to get thorough with this. You'll feel it throughout the scaps, into the rib cage here, because what happens is your muscle or your bones hit each other. Your scapula can only go so far until it like hits into, I mean, you just get mechanical blockages within the body, not in any kind of bad way, but the body only does what it does. And so my arm only goes to here, and then what do I do? You know, I mean, I want to just make sure I'm saying as thorough as I can, because yeah, mechanical blockages. Because the point is, look at my back. If I'm going to pull something, I've got like range, right? Look what my back does. If I were to be starting a lawnmower, like watch my scapulas. This is good, the lighting's pretty good for you to be able to see the motion. Like if I'm neutral here, even though my legs are so far out, they're internally rotated, okay? Because I'm on the arches of my feet, gripping inward, and my pelvis is tucked. Posterior, activating the core. Now if I was going to like pull this lawnmower, look at all this range of motion. From here, all the way. See my back? It can just keep going. Now if I was going to try to like push the lawnmower cord, I get to here and I stop. You can't do anything about it because there's mechanical blockages within the body. So pulling motions, I kind of fanboy over like I said, martial artists, Spider-Man, things like that, dude. Because you watch Spider-Man, he's always like so open, but it's an internal opening, right? Internal rotation is an open position. I did a video one time called Why Athletes Aren't Natural. And I showed a soccer kick, and I'll kind of show it here, but if you run up to kick a soccer ball and you open into internal rotation, right? It's an opening to pull inward. Yeah, so the body pulls, it doesn't even really push. It can, kind of, but it doesn't really even push because of the things I described within this video. So yeah, pulling. Yeah. All right. I think that's it. Well, I want to discuss the lower body too, because not just the position, but I've made many videos on why the body doesn't sit in chairs. Well, I made one titled, "The Body Doesn't Sit in Chairs." The human body doesn't sit in chairs, because anything anywhere near a 90-degree bend at the knees and the hips is deactivating everything. Because your posterior chain is where you're grounded. It's where your body works. It's where internal rotation comes from, right? And so the adductors, glute medius, hamstrings, like grip, core, right? Your internal. So if you were to take, like, sitting on the ground, for example, when your heels are on the ground, you're pulling your heels toward you, right? If I were just sitting, I'm gonna do it because this is important to show in this video. If I'm just sitting on the ground, my heels are pulling to keep me up. If my heels were trying to push, I'd fall and deactivate my core. It's because my heels are allowed to grip something that my hamstrings can stay activated, and then it's a similar position internal to standing. But if I were to be sitting in a chair that's at 90 degrees, I'm essentially pushing, right? Because your feet are on the ground and you're sitting like in a position that's very deactivated, because it's essentially a push at somewhere around 90 degrees in a chair, versus sitting here, I can pull from the hamstrings, right? Pushing in a chair from the quads, not natural. Pulling on the ground from the hamstrings, natural, okay? So, yeah, that's beautiful. I love this video. A very thorough video. I love it. Okay, so, yeah. I understand at the beginning, I started it by saying I'm going to talk about the bench press. I need to clear that from my own, like, intention that I was kind of like, you know, planning on making a video of just the whole thing being about pushing versus pulling, but that's okay. That's what this is just the beginning started seeming like it was going to be something else, because that was what I was planning at first. But okay, yeah, no, this is awesome. Pushing versus pulling, the body just really is only set up to do one over the other because of the rotations, because of the natural positioning of everything. Well, because of the way the pelvis works too, because the pelvis wants to tuck to pull, and if the pelvis is going anterior, then the entire body is kind of like pushing. You know what I mean? So yeah, I mean, like the horse stance kind of thing, I think that's what it's called, but I don't do it, but I've just seen it like in the martial arts or whatever, when they stand like similar to this. The whole point is it's actually internal rotation. It's actually a pull. It's the adductors that are working within this, and the glute medius, and the outsides of the feet, the gripped arch. These motions, you might think that you're like pushing into the ground. You're actually pulling toward yourself, because the pelvis is actually tucked, right? Neutral though, but it is tucked activation wise, at least. So yeah, the body likes to pull, not push. So I'm out of breath. That was a lot. That was really cool though. I love that. That was like a workout. I don't do like workouts for the sake of working out, but like, I just mean like that's quite a bit to do. That was cool. All right, so like I said, it's the 7th of October, 2024. My name is Evan Strong, the founder of In The Image Clothing Company. As you can tell within this video, we are so much more than just a clothing company. We will have clothing available, always made out of 100% natural materials. We'll never have any kind of tags protruding from the insides, no kind of branding or logoing on the exterior at all. And yeah, so that'll come when it comes. We do have In The Image Clothing Company podcast, where we just discuss the gospel of Jesus Christ, which is what everything is centered around, because he created it all and us. So you can go check out those things where you can find them. Yeah, so clothing incorporated within our designs at In The Image Clothing Company. The pants will always sit entirely above the hips, very slightly higher in the front than the rear. The seams on top of the shoulders will sit behind them, and the ones at the edges will be right at the very edges. So try to purchase it in your size if you can. If you do purchase our clothing, that's the whole intent. Just don't purchase it oversized for fashion. That will not help you with our designs. Or our designs will not be able to do for you what we've designed them to do if you do try to wear it oversized. Just do not do that, please. I'm tired. I mean, I'm fine. I haven't filmed a video like this where I've done that much like movement to where I'm like kind of breathing heavy in the video, but okay, cool. So yes, this video did start with the bench press, so I kind of want to address that yes, I mean, that was the whole thing bringing us into this. Is when you do a bench press, same kind of thing. I mean, you can only get so far. Oh, full circle, right? Here's the thing. At the beginning when I was talking about it and I was saying people will like do this with their pelvis, and then all this stuff that I did here to describe what happens trying to like, you know, compensate. I was doing a lawnmower cord and whatever. That's what I mean. You'll be on a bench trying to bench press, and you only get so far because your body only goes so far. That's how it's supposed to be. And then what you'll do is you'll see them arching their back on the bench to try to get farther, completely altering their entire spine, cervical spine, thoracic spine, and lumbar, and then everything is just being altered. But okay, that brought it full circle though, because yeah, that's why people do that. Sometimes people will wear like a belt, like a, you know, like one of those support leather weightlifting belts they'll wear for like a deadlift. Sometimes people will use that for a bench press. Put it around their back, sit on the bench or lay on the bench, and then like arch their back, completely deactivating their core. And like all these ego lifts, and like they think they're so big and tough and strong. Dude, you probably could kill me for sure, but we want the body to work as it's designed, you know? Like, very strange. Anyway, all right, cool. I'm gonna cut this, but I love this. So again, the human body wants to pull toward itself, towards its center, where all the range of motion is, and that's how you're going to have a good life, right? And I love that I sat on the ground too, because now when you do watch my videos about the body not sitting in chairs, and just that is true, as common as it is nowadays, it's something the body doesn't actually do. It can, but it's just completely deactivated in that position, right? Hamstrings are on the thing you're sitting on to where they're deactivated and they want to grip, right? So that gives a good visual of that too as well, to kind of bring that into that other video where I was sitting on the ground here. Okay, this is awesome. Internal, right? Internal rotation, internal rotation. It's always about the internal rotation of the body. So that's why we do have our prerequisites, and I've gone over this in many videos, but like if you have a tag in the rear of your shirt, this internal rotation will have a gap here, making it seem like it's going to be easier to be an external rotation, but it's never easier for your body to be an external rotation. But I actually did a video the other day on why oversized clothing is common, and I went into it, right? And that's same thing. You're wearing clothing that's maybe not even the size of it, but maybe the material, or just because of the tags, you're already in external rotation. From this position, you don't feel like you can pull, because mechanically you can't, unless you get in a position allowing the muscles that do internal rotation to be able to have their range of motion. And if you're here, it just won't happen. Again, mechanical blockages now on the other end, but the end that the body's actually designed to work in, being internal rotation. Okay, that's beautiful. All right, thank you.